This week, The Flash gets a new villain, Doctor Strange gets stranger, and The Force Awakens over at Marvel. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where I go over comics in detail. This episode of Preview Picks is going to go over a bunch of different books that are coming out from DC, Marvel, and a few independent titles. To start things off, we're going to go with Action Comics 958, written by Dan Jurgens. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the last issue. I feel like there was a ton of stuff that was crammed into this book, this tiny introduction to the new Superman into this universe, but I'm really excited to see where they kind of go with that last page reveal this week and how everything kind of plays out. After Action Comics, we're going to go to Aquaman #1. So Aquaman Rebirth was a great story that allowed you to get introduced to the character of Aquaman, and now this is where the rubber really meets the road. So I'm really interested to see where Dan Abnett takes this book because he did a great job introducing the character, a character that I wasn't really interested in, and I'm still a little bit on the fence about, but ultimately, I want to give it a chance. I want to give it a shot, which is what I'm recommending everybody do, simply because you can't judge a book simply by its first issue. You've got to see what kind of path the storyteller wants to take you down. Then we get into an item from my pull list, though I'm not sure how long it's going to stay there, and that is Carnage #9, written by Jerry Conway. So when I really picked up this book, issues 1 through 6, it was really a great horror kind of novel that was adapted into a comic book. It was very interesting and the art was very good. The art hasn't changed at all, but ultimately the story dynamic has shifted a little bit. I wanted to see a little bit more development out of the man-wolf character and kind of play up that monster horror kind of aspect. I'm going to give it a chance, and if you want to get a good story, I would recommend going back to the first 6 issues and at least giving those guys a shot. I was going to take this spot to really talk about Civil War II Choosing Sides, issue 1, but I don't really care for tie-ins unless there's something for a specific character, so I'm just going to skip over that one and go straight to Deadpool versus Gambit. I feel like Deadpool saturation is hitting the marketplace, and they're kind of focusing on this character of Gambit, which has always been this kind of slick, popular, good-looking character in the comic books, and I don't really know if I want to see where this goes. I'm going to go take a look at it. It's one of those things where if you're a fan of the Deadpool character, if you're a fan of Gambit, and you want to kind of see that dynamic and how they would interact, this is going to be your showcase moment. It's one of those things where I can't quite recommend, but it's definitely something I'm going to be looking at to see if it's got any kind of potential. After DVG, I don't think it works quite as well as BVS. But then we get into Doctor Strange. So if you're not reading Doctor Strange, start reading Doctor Strange. Jason Aaron is doing a phenomenal job writing Doctor Strange. And I can't really say enough good things about what Jason Aaron's doing. And then Chris Bachalo is doing a great job on the art. It ties really well into the world of mysticism that Doctor Strange really embodies. And this Last Days of Magic story arc is extremely compelling, and I can't wait to see what the consequences are for Doctor Strange and his compatriots after they get done dealing with the Empirical. Then from The Good Doctor, we move on to The Force Awakens. So The Force Awakens is going to be an adaptation of the film that was just runaway rampant blockbuster success. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of adapt it, if there are going to be any kind of really complementary pieces that are introduced into the actual storyline of Force Awakens. But the thing that I'm really interested in is this variant cover. I'm really digging this kind of artwork, and I really like where it's going. So if you're going to be picking up any kind of variants, this is one that I would be looking out for, even though I don't really recommend variants much at all. It's definitely something where if I see that, it's going to take the place of the stock cover for sure. Once we return from a galaxy far, far away and go back to Earth, we end up with what is a controversial character, and that would be Gwenpool #3, written by Christopher Hastings. And Gwenpool #3... Gwenpool overall, as this kind of book continues, is one of those surprisingly entertaining pieces of writing. And I think that Christopher Hastings is he's embraced the absurdity of it, and even when you look at the summaries, it's just like, oh my god, she's still alive! And you don't understand how, he doesn't understand how, and he's just writing these situations along, and then MODOK with a mohawk is really ridiculous. But the art by Gurihiro is worth going back to the book every single time. It's just sensational, and I really dig the art style that's going on in this book, even though the story and the character is just a little bit out there, and it seems a little bit too ridiculous to be any kind of long-term read. So after we leave the world of Gwenpool, we end up with the series finale of the New 52 Justice League with Justice League 52. And this has been described as a precursor to the Titans book, and it's one of those things where it's going to be kind of a must-read. Sam Humphries is penning these, and I have to find myself going back. I'm going to have to go grab 51 and then read 52 and possibly even earlier that. I got to get from the Dark Side War conclusion all the way to where we are now if I want to kind of stay inside the DC Rebirth continuity. Unlike some other tie-in books, it's like, okay, cool, no, I can go pick up 1 or 2 issues as long as it just gives me a little bit of meaningful context for the rest of the story. Another book we've got in the wake of DC Rebirth is Detective Comics 935, which, to be honest, is one of the surprise hits for me from this second release of DC Rebirth titles. James Tynion IV did a great job compiling and bringing together this kind of group of merry misfits. Don't quote me on merry, but quote me on misfits. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic seeing Batwoman, a strong character, matching up with Batman, another strong character and cousin of hers, and training and teaching these young kind of vigilantes inside the city of Gotham. It's a very different take on Batman and the Bat Family than what we saw in Batman #1 by Tom King, and it's going to be a great ride to kind of see where both of those thought processes go, especially before Scott Snyder releases All-Star Batman, which is going to be a very different take on everything. Then we get into a surprise #1 pick by Boom Studios, and that is Lucas Stand, written by Kurt Sutter, the mastermind behind the phenomenon that was Sons of Anarchy. I'm very intrigued to see how that plays out in a serialized format like a comic book, because it's very similar to television. That's why we've seen such great success with shows like The Flash and Arrow, where storytelling inside a comic book is very much episodic. So I feel like this is a natural situation where he can kind of lend some guidance to an overall story that can be brought to life by an artist. Once we get past Lucas Stand, we get to The Mighty Thor. So Jane Foster Thor she's back. She's back from hiatus, and it looks like she's going to be participating in this giant conflict, this war of the gods, or at least that's what Jason Aaron is trying to sell us on. And I really like the way Russell Dodderman is doing the artwork. He's been a mainstay of the book since it started, and it's one of those books where I've got it on my pull list. It's my must-buy because I want to see where the story's going. And even with the kind of hiatus that they took in the previous 2 issues, I'm really excited to see where we kind of pick up with Jane Foster Thor, the Mighty Thor, right now. Then, like a bolt of lightning, we end up with The Flash, written by Joshua Williamson. While trying to work on this whole DC Rebirth thing with Batman, he is going to have to come face-to-face with a new villain, Godspeed, which is going to be pretty crazy. It's always fun to see the introduction of new speedsters, and this is going to probably be the first real debut of Godspeed, so I'm interested to see what kind of characterization they give this particular villain. It's one of those things where the Flash family is going to be the heart and soul of Rebirth, it seems to be, and I'm excited to see where Joshua Williamson takes this book over the next story arc or 2 and see how that develops. Then we jump right from The Flash into Hulk Smash, where the Totally Awesome Hulk issue 7 picks up. We actually leave Amadeus Cho, who is the current acting Hulk, and go to Bruce Banner, who's been living a very mild-mannered life. And if you've read Civil War II issue 2, you know that things might get a little bit hot and heavy for Mr. Banner. So we either get to see the precursor, the whole 8 months or so that Bruce Banner has been out and about without having to deal with the problems of being the Hulk, leading up to that particular moment, which has got some particularly bad consequences for Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, or former Hulk, the monster formerly known as the Hulk. And I'm interested to see what Bruce has been up to and how it impacts Amadeus and how he's performing as the Hulk himself. Then we go into the Ultimates. The Ultimates is one of the books that I am kind of picking up to... I really bought this book and the books that preceded it to kind of catch up into Civil War previously, and I found that the cosmic universe of Marvel, like the whole cosmic entities and the structure behind that, is very interesting. So I kind of want to pick up along with that because this is ultimately the most galactic group that we have currently going out there without, talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they deal with much higher concepts. It's almost like Fantastic Four, kind of, we're going to go out into the negative zone and on all that kind of stuff. And they're dealing with it on a much more... I think they're very similarly grand scale to the Fantastic Four, but you've got a much more diverse cast of characters, and Al Ewing is doing a very good job of writing it. So it's one of those things where if you want to kind of dip into that cosmic stuff, definitely a recommended pickup. You might be curious as to why she's the last one on the list, but you don't have to wonder why Wonder Woman #1 is one of my best recommendations for people. It's going to be Greg Rucka telling the definitive origin story of the Wonder Woman character, and that's something that you're going to want to be on board with. The rumor mill says that he is going to be doing two different stories. Essentially, he's going to be a modern, current-day story, and then previous past stories alternating week after week. So you could skip an issue if you really wanted to, but ultimately, if you wanted to kind of see where these two separate stories converge, and not convergence converge, but like become one cohesive tale, that's something that you're going to want to follow along with for the foreseeable future, so that way you have all the information to kind of make Wonder Woman whole again. And I'm really excited about that. So those are the books that I'm interested in taking a look at, but ultimately I want to know what you guys are going to take a look at too. Hit me up in the comments down below, let me know why you're going to pick up what you want to, and then we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to get more news regarding comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.